Thank you, SIU Hyderabad, for inviting me for the TEDx talk. I enjoy giving talks and I enjoy giving TEDx talks because for me, talking to young people in the audience and telling them wonderful stories through which they can feel inspired and learn is something that I just love to do. So the topic given was Beyond Horizons, and for me it was actually overcoming personal limits, not just for myself, but for some of my family members too. So you know this story, the story of my father, who actually was just a teacher in one of the oldest colleges, and taught students and loved teaching. He could have well continued his professional journey as a teacher, would have probably retired at the age of 58, would have got an excellent pension, and would have led a life of comfort. But he decided that his life shouldn't be comfortable. In fact, he enjoyed discomfort and therefore established an organization which he went through a lot of grit, determination, and pushed himself beyond horizons. Because the whole idea of bringing international and Indian students way back in the 1970s was unheard of. In fact, Indian people and citizens of India actually discriminated and detested international students then. And to buy this idea amongst everyone that these are our brothers and sisters and we need to get them together along with young Indian students was something that was unheard of. And he went through a lot of challenges, but was so determined to push beyond horizons that he established an organization which today is one of the largest multidisciplinary universities in India. My own story, some of you may be knowing and others may not, that I'm a medical doctor. And like every young girl who aspires to do medicine or become a doctor, one studies hard because what you envision yourself is the picture on my left. You envision that a medical career would be something like this, going into medicine and start treating patients. Honestly, it was not. It was a rude shock when I entered a dissection hall as large as probably this auditorium with 200 dead bodies lying on steel tables. I didn't know medicine was this. I always thought medicine was going to a hospital or going to a clinic and actually giving medicines to a patient. To my rude shock, it was seeing those dead bodies first, and then dissecting them was the second one. I decided to flee away from this profession. When I came back home, I told my father that I would rather not do medicine, but do something which he wanted me to do. He wanted me to do humanities and social sciences and become an Indian Foreign Service officer. I felt at that time that this was the best excuse. And I said, I would rather listen to you than do something that I wanted to. He probably realized that I ran away as a coward. And when he realized this, he took me back to this dissection hall, would come every day and sit outside this dissection hall till I overcame that fear. Probably if he had not pushed me and I had not pushed myself, I wouldn't have been a medical doctor and then a gynecologist, actually treating patients the way you see in this picture, and then feel satisfied and not really regretted for not doing something that I wanted to do. So every time you have to keep pushing beyond borders. Another story of beyond horizons, dreaming beyond land and limits. What you see on the left side, on my left side, is a picture of a mountain and a small hillock, right? What you see on my right is the picture of a beautiful university campus. Let me tell you how I pushed myself beyond horizons to acquire this land, and not just acquire this land, but actually convert this into a beautiful university. When a university had to be established, all of you know what it requires first is land. And land is not easy to get in India. It's expensive, and also there are a lot of bureaucratic hurdles. When we decided to acquire this beautiful hill that you see and the hillock, there were a lot of issues. At one point in time, we actually felt that the government of the state would not give us this piece of land, which was adjacent to something that we had already bought. We went through a lot of hurdles, and eventually, I remember that it was just the last 10 days before elections then, in 2005, were to be declared. And you all know as young people that just about 45 days before the election, there's a code of conduct. And then everything comes to a standstill. Our land proposal was already lying in the secretariat of the government. And we felt that probably this land is going to slip out of our hands because the election will be declared and a new government will come in and we will have to go through the whole process again. I had never entered the portals of a secretariat of the government till then. But when I saw the anxiety and the stress amongst everyone, I took it upon myself that I would go and probably meet the topmost man, the chief minister, and get this land. I went every day at 7 in the morning from Pune, reached Mumbai at about 10, entered the secretariat to see more than thousands and lakhs of people like me who came to get their work done because they knew that once the code of conduct would be declared, their work wouldn't be done. I hardly knew anybody then, but I had to find the file out of heaps of files that were lying in the Department of Education, and then move this file from the Department of Education to probably 5 to 6 other ministries to reach the CM's office. I kept doing this for 10 days, consecutively 10 days, waking up early in the morning, taking a cab, going to Mumbai, and actually sitting in Mantralaya not knowing what will happen. You won't imagine that on the 10th day, when the code of conduct was to be declared at 4 p.m., my file had actually reached the CM's office. When I waited outside the CM's office and decided to enter, with me, probably there was a ratio of 1 to 1,000, one woman against probably 1,000 men. But still, I pushed myself in, went to the chief minister, and told him the whole story. And when he realized that this land was for a great cause of establishing a university, at just 5 minutes to 4 p.m., he actually signed on the file, and I knew that the land was ours. Every time you have to actually create something new, you have to push horizons, you have to look beyond horizons and push yourself beyond limits, and only then, you will achieve success. Another story, you see the barren land on the left, again from hills to heritage. What we've created here is a heritage site of a museum, of Dr. Ambedkar Museum. And my mother, who's sitting here, took a lot of efforts to actually create this beautiful garden alongside the museum. When the land was as barren as this, it was actually maintained to be barren because the neighborhood slums would actually use this land for their daily chores. But when we acquired the land, you couldn't imagine that this land was acquired again with a lot of challenges, a huge amount of criticism on the organization by citizens of Pune who felt that a concrete jungle would be created. But later on, they realized that this became a site for a monument which is known not just nationally, but internationally. A barren piece of land was converted into a beautiful garden with a beautiful museum, which now has become one of the best heritage sites in India, and also a Panchatirtha being declared by the Chief Minister. This campus in Hyderabad, I hope you recognize your own campus. This went through a lot of legal, political, and regulatory hurdles. For some of you who know, but for many of you who don't know, this campus was the brainchild of the founder. He wanted to create a magnificent campus in the southern part of India. When we got this piece of land, we designed a beautiful campus and felt that everything would be rosy, but it didn't happen. After the campus was actually created, there were hurdles to even get permission from the Government of India and the Ministry of Education to actually begin classes. Faculty were appointed, the directors were appointed, a lot of staff was appointed, but we simply couldn't get permission to start the campus. There were about 3 teams that were sent to inspect the campus, to interact with the Vice Chancellor, to interact with faculty members. Somehow, something was going wrong, and it just didn't happen. But the perseverance, as we say, pays. We kept on and on and on, kept having the trust and faith in ourselves, and eventually had to go to the Supreme Court of India to actually get a notification for this campus because the government of India was not giving us the permission. What I'm trying to impose upon you all is that many a times you dream and envision of creating something, but there could be hurdles. And those hurdles could be challenges to you, but you need to keep pushing yourself and pushing beyond horizons to achieve success. And the Hyderabad campus is one of the best examples. You all know that recently we created a campus in Dubai. This was beyond borders. While we had a dream to create an international campus, what was the biggest challenge was getting funds to create this. As a family or as an organization, there were no funds which could be transferred from India to a different part or a different region in the world, because regulatory frameworks of the ministry do not allow funds to be transferred outside unless you are in the corporate structure, and we were not. We were a not-for-profit, or we are a not-for-profit organization, and it is difficult for not-for-profit organizations to actually facilitate funding for an international organization or an international branch campus. What we did was, again, to push ourselves, because we had the belief that what we are doing is something that India will feel proud of, or the country will feel proud of. And what did we do? We actually gave a presentation to none other than the Minister of Finance and had to convince her that this is important not just for the university, but it's important for the country, for the nation. To project one of the largest universities in India to have a campus overseas and offshore was something that we had to convince her. Of course, she also had the regulatory framework in front of her, and it was very difficult for her to give us permission. But eventually, because the vision was right, because the thought process was right, and because she knew that these funds would be used so that for the betterment of the other community in that part of the region or in Dubai, permission was given to us. And this was probably the first permission given to any university in India to actually facilitate funding of a branch campus overseas. So again, beyond borders, people feel that it's so easy to create campuses, to create branches, to actually construct campuses, but it is not. One has to keep pushing yourself. If you give up, then you stay where you are. But if you keep pushing yourselves, obviously, you create more and more such campuses for the betterment and education of young people. Shaping ideas to institutions. What you see on the left is a young girl, a girl who actually wanted to become who didn't want to become a doctor. Her husband kept pushing her to study hard. At the age of 14, she got married to a widower who was 22. An eccentric husband that he was, he kept pushing her to become a doctor, to facilitate her studies. He also sent her to a school during those times in the 19th century when girls were not even allowed to go to school. But this man had the determination. This young girl actually did not want to become a doctor, nor did she want to study. She just wanted the comfort of a family. But when she became pregnant and delivered a baby boy, one day she saw that the baby boy is actually lying on her lap and sleeping well. For hours, the little baby was sleeping. She didn't even realize that this boy had fever because she herself was just about 16, 17 years then. When a doctor was summoned to see what was wrong with the boy, the doctor said, unfortunately, this little baby boy has passed away and is dead. To her utter shock, she could not believe, but what she believed in herself was that had she studied well and had she become a doctor as per her husband's wish, she could have probably saved her little baby boy. And then, as determined as she was, she studied in a school that did not allow young girls to go during those times. She further studied and went on to the University of Pennsylvania, to the Women's Only Medical College, and there she became a doctor and came back. Having inspired with this story, a medical college was born. So how can ideas actually shape institutions is a wonderful story of a medical college that has been established in the city only for girls. Again, an inspirational story. One more story of an idea to institution, again pushing yourself beyond boundaries. You know how the founder thinks. One day he was meditating, his eyes were closed, and he saw a picture of one of a spiritual leader. And he said that we would want to start something by the acronym of SAI. Honestly, none of us in our organization, in our university, realized what SAI meant. SAI meant the Institute of Artificial Intelligence. And imagine out of this idea, an institution was to be born. In literally 2 months, we pushed ourselves. We created an infrastructure. We appointed faculty members, and an institution was born. Little did we realize that when the institution had announced just 60 seats, we actually filled in more than 200 students only because an idea had shaped into an institution under a university that people actually wanted to get in. This is a wonderful story. You all know that the university has an outreach program, and we offer scholarships for young girls who come from poor families. This young girl called Renuka was also from a small village called Katarkhad, which is about 10 kilometers from the university campus. This small village has a habitation of just 2,000 people. There is just a primary school. Renuka had to walk a distance of about 8 to 10 kilometers every day to go to a secondary school. After that, this little girl wanted to become a doctor, but her parents, who were laborers at a construction site, didn't have money to send her to a coaching class to go through the NEET exam. Renuka, as determined as she would be, realized that the university offers scholarships for various professional programs. She applied for the scholarship program and eventually came in front of us for an interview. When we started asking her questions in Marathi, obviously because she came from a small village, she answered every question in fluent English. One question in Marathi, the answer would be in fluent English. The second question, the third question. Eventually, after the fourth question, I asked her, Renuka, how can you speak such fluent English, and that too grammatically correct English? And what she told me actually gave me goosebumps, then and even now. Renuka said that, ma'am, I actually want to become a doctor, but I know my parents don't have money. But I also know that English is a language that would give me confidence and excellent communication. So what I did was, I borrowed a smartphone of a friend for 1 hour every day, and I would go on the YouTube and actually study English grammar and keep saying the sentences again and again. Then I would go back, and in front of a broken mirror, I would stand and keep speaking those sentences so that I gain confidence. Beyond that, I would stand in front of my parents and actually start talking to them in English. And I asked her, but your parents don't know English and can't even understand anything that you said. And what she said was, I don't care whether they understood or not. What I cared was that whether I have the confidence in speaking in front of two individuals. And today I'm standing here in front of you, speaking so confidently and correctly was because I actually did this in front of the mirror and in front of my parents. We immediately gave her a scholarship, and she became a nurse, got a job in our hospital, later, of course, moved on to actually doing a nursing job in one of the prestigious hospitals. When she comes back and meets us, I asked her, what is your dream, Renuka? And she says that I will like to educate at least 2 girls from the same village that I come from so that they too get an opportunity to empower themselves. So how this little girl has pushed beyond boundaries, beyond the horizon, to not just create something for herself, but for many more who are like her. I've learned a lot of things from my father. I'm sure all of you have. Some of the stories actually have helped me to push beyond borders, beyond horizons. I realize that the more and more I push myself, the more and more I actually dream of. Because I believe that beyond horizons is not about distance, it's about daring. Every horizon that I cross revealed another. The journey is endless, but I think that's the beauty. I hope that all of you also push beyond horizons to not to just do things for yourselves and your families, but for the communities at large. Thank you.